Hey everyone, good morning. Curry and I are here to help talk to you about supply and demand, aka it's Econ 101. This presentation will help you with your homework assignments for this week, your asynchronous classroom packet, as well as contribute to your further understanding of Econ overall. So, last week with the High Skyline College Food Court project, we were trying to figure out, which restaurants were going to be most popular, which were going to make the most money for our student body and our campus overall. Um, in other words, we were trying to figure out which restaurants would have high demand and would be able to make a profit off of that high demand and be able to create enough supply at a reasonable cost to meet that demand. So in econ, demand is both the desire to own something and the ability to pay for it. Lots of students may have wanted the steak and the crab crepes from the food court, but if they didn't have the ability to pay for it, then they do not demand it, right? So there's a difference there between something that you just want and something that you actually demand in econ, right? Um, you know, I want a brand new state of the art gaming PC with the newest graphics card, but I don't demand it because really I'm happy with my old one. um, so this whole phenomenon of demand can be summed up as the law of demand, which is that when a good's price is lower, consumers typically demand more of it, right? If that brand new gaming PC was cheaper, then maybe I could justify the upgrade and I would go ahead, demand it, and buy it, right? On the other hand, when price is higher, consumers buy less of it. And so there's lots of things that influence whether someone will demand something or not, but price is just the biggest one, right? Um, it's just the biggest one overall. So we can look at this as like a visual representation. It's very simple for the law of demand. When the price goes up, demand goes down. The inverse is also true. When the price goes down, demand goes up. So like we were doing with the Skyline Food Court, we can visualize this on what's called a demand schedule or a table that lists the quantity of a good a person will buy at each different price. A demand schedule or a table takes the list, and that list can be turned into a graph form in order to have a demand graph and demand curve. So let's see what these look like. Thinking about a slice of pizza here, perhaps, right? And a group of 6 people. When you have the slice of pizza cost $12, nobody wants it. When it costs $8, 2 people want it. It costs $4, 4 people want it. When it's free, all 6 people will take it, right? And so what we have here is a graph to represent that data with price on the y-axis, quantity demanded on the x-axis, and the graph and the table both represent the law of demand, aka as price goes down, demand goes up. So let's look at that on the graph. As price goes down, demand goes up, right? So that's what we're seeing with the law of demand, demand schedule, and demand curve. It's all right there. The demand curve is only accurate when price is the only factor we're looking at, right? Remember I mentioned that price is the most important one, but sometimes other factors come along and change demand as well, right? So when that happens, instead of moving along the curve, how we're visualizing the demand shifts, right? So let's consider this demand shift right here. D1 was our normal demand curve. This is how much economists figured out at each price people would buy, right? Now, if there's a change in the overall market, okay, and let's say an inward shift, people are still going to buy the same amount at each price relatively, except overall that entire amount is going to be less. Okay, we'll talk in a second about what an example of something that would lead to that shift is. But the same thing is true for shifts to the right. People are still going to buy roughly the same amount at each price, except overall the prices are going to be higher, right? So what causes a shift? A right shift means there's overall increased demand. A left shift means there's overall decreased demand. Anything that could affect the price or the demand outside of the price itself can cause a shift, right? So, for example, consumers might have expectations about how the price for a product might change in the future, right? If you know the price is going to go down later, are you going to buy now or are you going to wait till later? You might just wait for later, making the price shift to the left in the short term as demand decreases. An overall market changing and population size could shift the curve. And one that I know we'll all be familiar with is consumer tastes and advertising trends. Over the last couple of years, we've seen brands like Supreme and Champion blow up, right? Um, just looking back at the curve shifting, let's say, D1 was the curve for how much Supreme people were willing to buy when it first came out, right? And then influencers and bloggers and fashion people and the popular kids at school all started repping Supreme. And next thing you know, the curve shifts to the right as the price didn't change yet, right? You could still buy the same amount of Supreme stuff for the same price, but more people just wanted it due to a change other than price, right? Now, eventually, right, Supreme might change the prices and then we'd move along the curve, okay? But when it was just a change in popularity before the change in price, then we shift the entire curve. So, yeah, those are some reasons why the curves might shift outside of a change in price. So there's also different types of goods to consider here that will change how much of an item people want to buy. Normal, inferior, and luxury. People all buy at different prices and at different curves based on your preferences. And my pictures got a little like, they're all over the place here, but this one is important. It's that the prices of related goods can end up shifting each other's curve. And there's two main categories to know about here. We've got what are called complements or complementary goods and supplements or supplementary goods. So these are things that either support each other or replace each other. Complements support each other. They go well together. Think about the market for skis and the market for ski boots. The more people are buying skis, the more people are going to buy ski boots as well, because you can't use one without the other. Peanut butter and jelly, toothbrush and toothpaste, things like that. Supplements, on the other hand, these are things that replace one another. Skis and snowboards, right? If you're buying more skis, then you don't need a snowboard because you already have skis, right? PlayStation and Xbox. If you're already bought a PlayStation, you probably don't need an Xbox. Are there people out there who have both a PlayStation and an Xbox? Yes. Who have both a skis and a snowboards? Yes. But more likely, people just have one or the other. So those are supplementary goods, right? Supplements replace each other. Complements support each other. That's something that's going to come up on the assignment. So I want you guys to know that. All right. So we also have supply here, which is the other side of the equation besides demand. Demand is from the consumer side. How much of a product do people want? Supply is from the producer side. How much are entrepreneurs willing to create firms to combine the factors of production to produce supply of that good or service, right? Supply is the amount of goods or services available. According to the law of supply, the higher the price, the larger the quantity produced. So what does that look like? That looks like as price increases, supply increases as well. As price falls, supply falls. Ooh, you may have noticed this is like the exact opposite of what we were seeing earlier with the law of demand, right? So you may be asking yourself right now, hold on, if the price for an item is going up, doesn't that make it more expensive to produce? Wouldn't it be harder for the firms to produce that item? Not necessarily, because as the price for an item goes up, their profit goes up. And, this whole capitalist equation right here around supply and demand is based on firms wanting to chase profit. That's what it all comes down to, right? So as the price for an item goes up, firms see the golden opportunity to make more profit, and they want to supply more of the product in order to increase their profit, right? So let's visualize how this looks on a graph, just like we did before. We'll start with a schedule or a table, and then we'll change it into a graph. Now, there's going to be one difference here, which is that one of our axes, instead of quantity demand, it's quantity supplied, and the direction that it rises is going to be different as well, right? So remember our demand curve earlier was going this way. The supply curve, on the other hand, this way. Quantity supplied, price, movement along the curve, expansion of supply, producers responding to the profit motive or the desire to make more money, right? As the price for an item rises, again, let's go back to supreme clothes get more popular, right? The clothing factories, they want to produce more supreme in order to make more money, right? That's that upward movement on the curve. Same as before, you might have factors outside of the price changing that would increase or decrease the supply, okay? So curve 1 here, S1, Supreme is still getting super popular. People want to produce more and more Supreme to get more and more money out of that fad. However, oh my God, there was a fire at the factory in Bangladesh. And so now there's a decrease in supply. And people are still willing to buy the same amount at the same price, but overall, the overall supply is less, right? They can't produce as much. Increase in supply, maybe it's so popular that they opened a new factory and now they can produce that much more. And at the same price, they're making that much more quantity and therefore making that much more profit, right? So that's a review of supply shifts. And there we have, a quick and dirty kind of overview of what the supply and demand curves look like and what the laws of supply and demand are and how they relate to each other. Now for this week, you're going to get some practice looking at some examples yourself. Now, all of these examples have to do with the wonderful pecan market. As you know, the pecan is a fine nut product useful in making pecan pies or even just enjoying as a healthy, nutritious, protein-filled snack, especially for vegetarians. Nuts are a great source of protein. In this example here, there's just a couple main things to know. One is that for these questions, for all these questions, we're going to assume that the demand at the beginning of the activity is at curve 3. That's very important. So put a circle around curve 3 here in your mind because that's where we start. And then you're going to read some of these fictitious headlines about the pecan market and make a decision about what happens to the curve. So Lunar New Year approaches when Chinese households love to eat pecans. Okay, looks like there's going to be a special shift in the market outside of price, right? It didn't say anything about the price of pecans changing, but there's going to be an event that comes that helps increase the demand for pecans, right? When Lunar New Year happens, Chinese households are going to be buying more pecans, so demand is going up. What happens when demand goes up with our demand curves? Let's see, we started at curve 3. This axis is quantity demanded. The curve shifting to the left, that would be a decrease in demand. But on Lunar New Year, we know there's going to be an increase in demand. So it looks like curve 3 isn't going to be good enough anymore. It's going to shift to the right. How much is it going to shift to the right? Judgment call. That's up to you. You can put it up to curve 4, curve 5, curve 6. Maybe just do 4, so it's just one at a time, and you keep track of it that way. So here we go. For Lunar New Year, we know that the curve is going to increase, and we know that the curve is going to go from curve 3 to curve 4. All right, so that's what we do for each question here, right? We started at 3. We figure out, based on the headline, does our curve increase, decrease, or, ooh, trick question, are there any where the curve doesn't move at all? Okay. And, on that point, remember that only a change other than price will shift the curve. If the change has to do with price only, then it moves along the curve, right? And if what I just said still sounds really confusing to you, I totally recommend you just kind of go back here, look at the graphs some more, look at the laws some more, and maybe just start this video over from the beginning, because, it's Econ 101. And I hope that this helps you understand it. And I hope that helps make the homework easier for you this week. Let me know if you have any other questions. Reach out. Otherwise, I'll see you later. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.